expect equal participation from all students of this class, and we should treat each other with respect. If you have questions, kindly raise up your hand, and you can use the chat also. We will answer to your question in there. Your mic is always muted, and please, once again, raise your hand if you have any question or any issues. So we will be introducing our speaker today again, the person of Mr. Adewale Yusuf. He is a lead senior analytic consultant at Havana, Dublin, a lead trainer at the Knowledge Academy in London, UK. He is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. He has 7 years experience as a business intelligence analyst. Kindly welcome him to this class, everyone. You can put up some reaction. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ganil. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining from again. I think we are here again just like we are yesterday. So I'm going to share my video. Okay, so you can see me. Please, Ganil, before I go ahead, confirm you can hear me clearly and I'm very audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible. Very clear, sir.
Okay, great. Now, before we go into today's session, I want everybody to put something in the chat. How was yesterday's session for you? Let's start even that. How was yesterday's session for you? Amazing, good. Let me just be sure that you guys are here with us. So just put something in the class. How was yesterday? Just one word. How was yesterday's session for you? Just in one word. Tell us how yesterday's session was. Hey, I can see great, very inspiring, insightful, awesome, amazing, great. Okay. Interesting, insightful. Okay. That's awesome. Now, my next question for you before we go ahead is I also want to ask. Remember yesterday I told you to kind of create a structure plan for yourself and rate yourself based on all these skills and create a well-structured plan. So how many of us are able to do this after the session? Maybe you do it on paper or you do it on Excel or spreadsheet. Just put yes or no in chat. Let me see. How many of us? Was anybody able to do structure for themselves? Put it in chat. Put it in chat. Yes or no? Someone said, I missed the class. Can we get the recording? Yes, the recording is already available. Great, inspiring, eye-opening. Okay. I can see yes, I did. Yes. Okay. Even if you didn't do it, just type no. At least no means you didn't do it, so it's okay. All right, so no from Michael. Okay, so I'm just basically going to share my screen now, and let's go into the main reason why we are here for today. So I'm sharing my screen in a second. Yep. So hello everyone again. So welcome to today's sessions. Today's session is all about getting started with analytics, and then we'll be talking a lot more about the fundamentals today and then the literacy, data literacy, so you can kind of understand what data is all about, what data analytics is all about, why we are doing this, what is this role even about. So that is the importance of these sessions, just understanding the fundamentals. So whether you have no knowledge at all about data, this session is perfect for you. Even though you have some intermediate or advanced knowledge of data, you still get a lot from this session as well. So I'll go straight into it. Ghani has mentioned our ground rules, and we all know the ground rules already. So I'm going to skip that. Introductions, Ghani has also introduced me, and you guys know me already, so I don't need any introduction anymore. So for today, we'll talk about our agenda. We'll kind of span through systems, organizations runs. We'll talk about data literacy. We'll talk about the analytic process. We'll talk about all you need is standard. Then we'll give avenue and room for some Q&A, which is question and answer. So let me go straight into this. But before we go, I'm leaving you to one quote again today, just like you know that I like quote a lot. So learn the rules like a pro so they can break them like an artist. So if you learn the rule like a pro, which means you've learned all the fundamentals and data literacy and everything, then you know how to break them in future. So when you know that this is the particular rule I'm breaking in analytics, in visualization, in writing query, I'm breaking this particular rule. So make sure you learn the rules like a pro, then the other stuff is to be very, very easy for you. Now I'm going to go to what we are here for. So I'm going to start with something, and then this exercise is kind of very simple. Every organization's run on two systems. That's one thing you should have in your mind, right? Before you even think about how analytics came into existence, just know that every organization's run on two systems. Now, when I'm talking about two systems, I'm going to cite an example and say, let's say this is our company, Analytic Extra, right? All of us, we are the owner of this company. So we want to start selling. What should we start selling now? Let's say we want to start selling software, right? That's our company. So we want to start selling software. And then these softwares, we want people to start buying, different people to start buying our softwares, buy or pay for licenses and all that. So that's our company, right? So the first system we're going to think about before I even start our business at all is something we call operational system, because it's just about how we are going to operate our business. How do you want to operate your business? How do you want your business to be running? So this kind of process is called the way we execute our business processes. So say, for example, you go into ShopRite, and you actually buy maybe one or two things in ShopRite, you know, somebody at the counter will probably kind of go to their system and then make sure that they input all the things that you bought, and that will be saved into the system. So that is executing the business process. So they are executing business doing that, right? So the second systems that people usually use is also called analytics system that most organizations runs on, because without analytics, really, you can't know what is going on in your business. For example, without analytics, we can't know, okay, how much did we sold last year? How much are our total sales this year? What is the total number of our staff across the country? How many staffs are leaving us? What is our staff attrition rate? We also want to see, okay, so let's check our different social media platform. What is people talking about us? So those are analytics, right? So any company that doesn't have analytics in place will die, right? So that company will actually die, because you need to know what is going on in your business. You need to know your financials. You need to know what is wrong in the business. And that's why most business also run on analytics system. And the effect of analytics system is actually used to query your business or evaluate your business. I can say you are querying the business to say, okay, so how much did I make this year? How much did I make last year? Am I progressing? Did I make more than what I made yesterday, or what I make more than 2 years ago? Which of my store is giving me the most profit? Which of my employee is more active? Which of the employees should I reward? So analysis system will give you all these details. It will help you evaluate your business. And that is why analytics is very important in any business. And there's no business in the world that will not need a data analyst. That's why our job is very, very simple, because we can work with any industries in the world. As long as it's a business, we can work with them, and we can actually do some analytics about their business. Now, example of operational system, it can actually be an off-the-shelf systems like SAP, Oracle, Dynamics 365, Swapcard, even Zoom. It can even be a custom-built system by a software developer. In fact, it can even be Form, right, that you're using to operate your business. In fact, it can even be Teams right here, the way we're operating this business now, because this is also a business we are doing here. We are training people. That is also executing the business process, right? So example of operational system are those. But when we are looking at analytics system, it can be some systems like self-service BI tools like Power BI. It can be a bespoke or custom systems. It can even be our old most popular Excel. You know, you can even do analytics in Excel. You can do almost everything you do in Power BI, you can do it in Excel. Almost. So it can be our old good Excel. It can be different other visualizations or analytic platform that people have out there, Python, SQL. So it can be that, right? So that is what you should have in the back of your mind first, that Organizations run on two systems: operational, which is the way they operate their business; analytics, which is the way they query their business. And where you come in or where you come from is the analytics part, because you are trying to help improve the business, right? Now, when we are talking about data literacy, a lot of people have been confusing this for so many things. People say, data literacy, I don't really understand what data literacy is. What's data literacy? I know about data. I know how to analyze data, but there are some key points you should understand in data. And that's what people put together and they call it illiteracy. And what I also call illiteracy. When I was working on this particular data literacy side, I think I've worked on this slide for like almost 2 years now. I just keep improving it. So I was thinking of different things that what do people really need to know in data fundamentals? What are the things that will really make people kind of understand what needs to be done, right? And if you look at all those things, it kind of have steps, or let me say stages, right? And these stages ranges from data generation to data structure to data storage to data analysis to statistics and also decision making, right? So these are the stages of data literacy, those stages that you need to understand, the stages that you need to know, okay, so what is going on here? And then what are the things that I need to know? Okay, so I'm going to go into all of this one by one, and I will start with data generation. But somebody said my screen is not shared yet. Can people confirm if you can see my screen clearly? Can you see my screen clearly?
Your screen is showing, sir.
Oh, okay. So, Abdul Wahab, probably that's your internet. So if you may go out and join again, so maybe that will be fixed. All right. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is data generation, because before you even think about data analytics or data storage at all, how are we going to generate this data? Because data is being generated by somebody. All those data you see online, all the data you download from Cargo, from World Bank, from different platforms, is being gathered by somebody. So somebody somewhere actually input that data into a particular system. And that is why you can see that data. So if the data is not being generated, then there's nothing for us to analyze. There's really nothing for us to analyze. So you need to understand the basis of how a data is being generated. I give an example of when you go to ShopRite. Now, somebody at the counter input all the goods that you buy. They put the money and they give you receipt and all that. Just imagine that you brought your goods into ShopRite and they just calculate the money and they just collect the money from you. Nobody input what you bought somewhere, right? Then there's no data. There's nothing to track whether this is being bought. So how do we collate all the data from different branches, different states, different country where ShopRite exists? How are we going to have that data? We are not going to have it. So data generation in data analytics is also very important. And you need to have a thinking process because data is everywhere. It's not just about the particular organization that you have. Just be rest assured that you can find data every single places. Like I mentioned earlier, in this our class, there are so many data we can gather here. We can gather our simulations. In fact, I'm going to create an analytics report about our performance in class, how people are present in class, how people are assimilating in class, different assessment about the class to see the groups that are the most active group. So we can create all of those things. So data is everywhere in every organization. And that is why you can see that when they're talking about HR analytics, people will say, okay, if you don't have any experience about HR, you can't analyze HR data. No, that's a lie. Why? You can actually analyze any data because you're a data analyst, right? So you just need to understand the process behind HR data. How did they gather it? How did they generate it? For example, the data you can see on my screen is coronavirus. I think I built this dashboard early 2020, or is it 2019 school, 2020 for TVC News. So they usually use this to report their news. So imagine how this data is being generated, right? Or if I want to ask a simple question, this coronavirus data, where is the origin? How do you think this data is being generated? Can somebody put it in chat? I just want two people to raise their hand and tell me, how do you think this data is being generated? This particular data. Okay, so I have two hands up already. So I'm going to give the first two people that raise their hand, I'm going to give them access to speak. So that's Abdul Malik and then Udofia. So two of you, please go ahead.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, so for the generation of this coronavirus data, I would say it's based off cases reported. Yeah, I would
Okay,
say it's
by
off
who?
reported.
Okay,
Like when they go
by
to the hospital, there's a record of cases reported already.
yeah, I think you are very, very correct, right? I'm just going to fine tune what you said. So these cases is not just we see the data online or somebody collated the data. These cases started from the hospital of a particular local government. Now, let's say, for example, somebody go to an hospital to complain, I have malaria, I'm not feeling fine. And then they said, let's treat you malaria. They give the person drug. The person is not still feeling well. Then the doctor advised, please, can you go to the testing center of this particular government? There's a possibility you have coronavirus. And this person go to this particular local government. This person is being tested. Now, when they test the person, somebody at the test center must put the data down that we tested this so person at this so time, and this person is positive. Right? Now, imagine that person at that particular time forgets to do his duty. Then there's nothing we'll call total cases in a local government. There's nothing we'll be able to put together and say total cases in a state. There'll be nothing we'll be able to put together and say total cases in a country. And there'll be nothing we need to put together to say total cases in the continent, or let's say in the world. Right? So data generation starts from the basics. So when you are analyzing the data, those are the things you need to understand. That how is this data being generated? Now let's do another simple exercise. I usually do this exercise a lot in my data analytics class. So put it in chat. Everyone, what data can you see? What data can you see on my screen right now? Just put it in chat. What data can you see? What data can be generated from this picture? Hey, I can see goods and services data, gender, population, transportation, numbers of people, sales, human population, people, fruits, cars, number of cars, image, okay, gender, population in this area, okay, number of people crossing the road. I like that. Number of people in the market, number of people crossing the road. Yes, that's actually data. Different gender, number of people and building, gender and color. Okay. Human population, road signs. And now people are thinking critically. Market analysis, population, gender. Okay. People selling versus people buying. It's critical thinking. Daily activities, number of buildings, goods and services, type of transport system, number of roadside hawkers. Okay. All of you are kind of correct, because with this single one picture, there is so many data you can generate from here. And this is how data generation started. People think critically and they were like, okay, so we need to start generating the data on this particular structure, right? And then, because if we start generating the data, then we can make a decision. Somebody can say, okay, let's look at this market. Let's gather data on this market. If we can gather data on this market, analyze what is going on in the market, analyze which type of people visit this market, analyze which gender visit this market the most, which kind of caliber of people come to this market, what's the best business we can put in this market. So that is how data generation starts. Before you can just make a decision, you don't just make a decision. You have to kind of make sure that you gather data first. You generate a data first. You now use that data to build some things to be able to say, okay, so this is the idea of what I can do. Now, I want you to look at this picture again. If you have to start a business based on this, let's just summarize this time with a high. If you have to start a business based on this, what business will you start in this market? Okay. What business? Water temperature change. Number of vehicles that, okay, POS. Oh, that's good. How much will we make with that? Chill bottle water, food, fruit and water. Okay, food, cloth, cloth, shoe cobbler, drinking water, clothing business, fish pie, fish pie, transportation business, street snack for people going to office wears, jewelries, luggage storage. Okay, water, food, clothes, Mickey donut. Mickey donut. This person must be a woman. Okay, okay. Yeah, it must be a woman. They like Mickey donuts. Okay, number of workers. Handkerchief business. Okay, now, it depends, right? But based on the data we can see here, Alabaru, maybe not start that kind of business. As in, depending on the kind of data you can see here, right? But based on what we can see right now, clothing is the perfect business to set up in this market because majority of the people that are in this market are selling cloth. That alone already tells you that this is like a clothing market. So many people come to this particular market to buy cloth. Their intention is to buy cloth, although they can see some other business like roadside hawking or some other things that they can easily grab, and then that's the reason why most people come here. And we can see businesses around as well. So it depends, right? So when you gather your data, that's when you can make decision. And that's the idea of this exercise. Now, data storage, the next thing, you've generated data. That's the data generation. Now, how are you going to store this data? Because we're talking about generation, we've generated data. How are we going to store it? So we need to store it somewhere, right? We need to store the data that we've generated somewhere. So where do we store this data? And that is where database comes into place. I'm sure some of us have been hearing database, but you don't understand what this means or what this is all about. Just English. Data, I like to kind of stress English, right? Maybe that's me. That's where I understand stuff. Database simply means where our data is based. Where our data is based. That's database. Where our data is based, right? Where you stored your data. That's your storage. See data storage as your phone. When you take a pictures, you just save this on your phone, and then you have 20 gig. And then when you exhausted that 20 gig, you deleted some of it. Or when you need a particular picture you snap 10 years ago. No, 10 years is even too much. Let's say 2 months ago, you snap a particular picture. What you do most of the time is you go to your gallery, you scroll up. Now, if you know how to use your phone very smartly, for people that are using iPhone, there's a way you can go to location and you see the picture you snap in a particular location. There's a way you can go to year and see a picture you snap in a particular year, right? That is what the storage is. It's something similar. So a database is an organized collection of data, generally stored and accessed electronically, right? So that's what a database is, where I am storing my data that I can easily access it anytime I need it. And that is what storage is. And you may be hearing of different type of database that we have. I think there's about 5 of them, but the most 2 popular out of them is the relational database and NoSQL database. All these terms are really, really very looking somehow to us, right? But it is not hard. It's very, very simple. Relational database, just know these are databases where you store tables, right? Tables in rows and columns. That's the other kind of database. An example of that is Excel, Access, SharePoint list, and some other basic tables that you think, even if you create a table in Microsoft Word, right? That is what a relational database is. So somewhere you can store and organize your data in rows and columns with predefined relationship. That's what a relational database is. So most people store their data in table. In fact, for data analysts and for us majorly, most of the data that we're going to be working with is a relational database because people will most likely store their data into tables, right? Although sometimes we work with non-relational database. That's what NoSQL means, or you can call it non-relational database, right? So most time we need to work with some data like that because non-relational database are just designed for structured and semi-structured or structured data without fixed schema. Or an example of NoSQL template that I can give you, an example of that can be maybe a picture where you save your pictures, where you save your document, where you save some data that are not really in image structure or does not really have a table schema, right? That is what this type of database is. So mostly you work with relational database. That's what data you work with most of the time as a data analyst. Now we have a database. Now this database can varies. It can have different type of data. And that is why we came about something we call data sources, right? Where do we source the data from? It can be in different places. In fact, see your social media as your database as well. Or it can also be a data source because I've actually requested my data from Google at a point. I think I did that like 2 years ago. There's a project I have in my portfolio where I requested my data from Google So Google give me my data of all the locations I've visited for the past a year or two. And I was able to analyze my different locations, time I spent in each of those locations, where I spent most of my time. So, and that data was very, very interesting. So we have data sources. So there are different data sources. So we can say SQL, we can say Excel, we can even say Access. So when you hear data sources, don't be scared. It's just where people are storing their data, where they are sourcing their data from. And these data sources can be in two places, right? It can either be on premises or cloud. I'm sure most people will have heard this too. On premises or cloud. On premises or cloud. On premises simply means data you are storing in your house, or let me say in a particular location or in a particular server, right? That's on premises. While cloud simply means the data you are storing on the internet. An example of what I can give you on that is if you store a particular data on your phone, maybe on your Apple now, on your iPhone, if you snap a picture on your phone, that is on premises. But immediately you upload that pictures to Apple storage, that means it's now on the cloud. Or maybe Google storage is now on Google Cloud, or is now on your phone, right? That's different. And it doesn't matter. Many companies actually decide on whether they want to put their data on the cloud or they want to put it on premises. But let me tell you a secret that most people won't tell you. Even cloud database is also on-prem, right? Cloud, even the cloud database is also on-prem, but it is on premises of a big organization, on premises of another organization. They now give a small storage of that to you, right? Let me say, for example, I can give you this example now. Wale has, I have a server, or let me even use a laptop. That's what you understand. I have a laptop that has 50 gig, right? And I collected like 80 laptop. So 80, or let me say 10 laptops. So I now have 500 gig. So what I now did is, I know a few of my friends that want to store their data or my storage, right? So I'll just look for an API to push that storage online, and I will set storage for each people. So I will say, Wale, you store 10 gig of your data on my storage, then you will pay me this particular amount, right? So even those cloud storage you are seeing, it is somebody on-prem. So it is usually some big organizations that have different servers, then they use APIs to push this online so that people can buy little by little of their storage, right? And that is why that you see that most social media always want to make sure that they have a storage in a particular country, not just cross-country storing of data, right? So once you understand that we have on premises, which means you can store your data locally or you can store it online, right? Then we push that into a business analyst or a data analyst who's going to analyze this data and get some insight with it. An example of such data can be Access, Acumatic, it can even be Salesforce, it can be for accountants where you save your data as well. Those are your storage as well. It can even be a CSV. It can even be your Gmail. It can even be SharePoint. Those are examples of where this data can be stored. Those are the storage, the different type of storage that we have. Now, the next thing is about data structure. And what I usually tell people is when it comes to structuring your data in those databases, or let's say in tables, I said we are mostly working with relational database, right? So when it comes to structuring tables or structuring your data, there are some simple rules I'm going to give you. And then you need to just jot that rules down. So these rules was put together by a company called Brand Consulting. I've previously worked there. So they kind of look at how data should be structured, right? So if you look at an example of what I can see on my screen, this table that I have here, right here, look a bit unstructured. Why this is very structured? So what that means is I have North Central here. I'm sure another North Central will be up here. But instead of having that, you should have a column called region and list all of that. You should have a column called copy assets. That's line of business. I should have a column that listed that. This is year, right? And this is revenue. So by this way, even if you're looking at this table, this is easier to understand than this one, right? That is why it is always good to kind of have your data structured. So somebody said it's not seeing my screen. Please, if you can see my screen, guys, please put a comment in the chat. Now, like I said, there are some 7 golden rules of data management and data structures that you need to kind of be aware of when it comes to structuring your data. So the first thing I'm going to give you is no empty column. No empty column. Anytime you are working with data, your data should never have an empty column. In between, you see the place I put red, that signifies an empty column. That means, please, for those that can't see my screen, please leave the meeting and join again. That's probably your internet. Now, no empty column simply means there should be no empty column. No empty column at all in your data set. Then the rule number 2 is similar to that. That means no empty row. No empty row. You should never have an empty row in your table or across your data set. Because when you have an empty row, for some of us that have tried this before, if you want to even use ordinary pivot table to pivot this particular data, it will not put the data below it because it will understand that this data has been separated. And that is what this entire empty row or entire empty column will cause. Things that the data has been separated. So it will not allow you to pick all of the data. So you should never have an empty column or an empty row. So the third rule says that all date must be in a single column. You must put your date in a single column. Now we are talking about data, not report. In your report, you can do anything you like. You can design your report the way you like. You can become a graphic designer if you want to. But in data set, there are some rules that guide data set. Don't mess up with your data set. All your dates in your data must be in one single column because every single row in a table signifies a transactions. Maybe you should write that down. Every single row in a table signifies a transaction. So if you don't have a date in line like this, that means you spoil the transactions because this is like January 26664. This is just one transaction, what we make in January, right? So all dates must be in a single column. The next rule is talking about all column must have a unique data type. All column must have a unique data type. What does this mean? It means that if you have a data set like this, look at what I just put, service plan part, copier sales. Nobody will know what this is, right? And it's a unique data type or a category. It should have its own column. And that is why you can see line of business. When it has its own column and it's properly labeled like this, then it will be easy for people to understand. So all column must have their own unique data type, right? All column, they must just have their own unique data type. They must have their own column. Don't just spread it across rows, right? So that's another rule in data structure. Then no total or subtotals. No total or subtotals. In fact, this particular rule have got somebody sacked. Somebody that I know. It has got this person sacked. And this is because this person don't know the fundamentals. No, the fundamental says that before you start analyzing the data, check if that data has a subtotal somewhere or it has a total somewhere. But this guy did not, right? So he's a friend of mine actually, but this guy has actually corrected his mistake and got a job somewhere else. But the mistake that this guy did is, this sales team has been making up to, let's say, they have been selling up to, let me say 40 million to 50 million annually, right? But this particular year, this guy is the sales analyst of this company. So he analyzed the sales data on everything they've sold. So he noticed that they've sold around 68 million out of 40 million that is usually 40, 45, 40, 45. That's been their usual trend for the past 5 years. So they've sold over 68 million, close to 70 million. So he showed the analysis to the sales team. Everybody was super happy. So they all start jubilating. In fact, they throw a party that they has over 40% increase. So they throw a party. They even lodge in one of Amazing Hotel in Neki. Right? So now, all the company has jubilated. The party has gone. Now, there's a department that we ask question. The first department that we ask the question. What department is that? Somebody type in the chat. Which department do you think we ask question first after sales jubilation? Which department? After sales jubilation, sales has jubilated. I can't. Yeah, I can't. That's financial department. That's finance, right? So finance department. So finance department was like, okay. So sales people said they sold 68 million worth of goods this year. How many receipts of this good do we have? Let's start checking our own data. Let's start auditing this finance. Let's start checking different things. Because the only thing that finance can keep an account for in their ledger book is only 42 million. So where did the excess come from? So finance, it gave finance a lot of stress and they were like, okay, so maybe we didn't collect receipt or invoice for some of these things. Is there any clients owing us? Do we have any clients owing us? Is there any money outside? At the end of the day, they find out that the only money that they have is 42 million. So they called the sales lead and this sales analyst into a meeting. And they were like, okay, so sales team, how did you guys get your 68 million? Because after 2 days of stress for finance team, they can only account for 42 million. Now, the sales lead look at my guy face to face. Hi, Akin. Alpha, how did we get 68 million? So we get 68 million for our data, right? Now, this 68 million was because there are some software hidden in between the data set. But because the guy did not check it properly or clean up this data very well, it sum up the entire revenue. And when you sum up the entire revenue, that means you have summed a particular subtotal with the actual revenue. So that means it will increase or boost the revenue up, right? And this guy actually started doing research. I've been analyzing this data for years. So it's 68 million. They said, okay, go and check your data again. So when this guy checked this data thoroughly, he called me into a meeting. And while he have analyzed this, this is a problem. We later find out that Akin add all the subtotal with the data. So that's why my friend Akin got sacked. So don't be Akin. Make sure that there is no total or subtotal anywhere in your data set. You can have that in your report. Like I said, you are free to do anything in your report. But in your data set, no design, no paparazzi. Leave the data the way it is, right? So that's rule number 5. I'm sure that rule is not going to leave you. You have to put that rule with you. Now, rule number 6 is talking about no obstruction around your data. So no obstruction simply means that anything that is not part of your data should not be in your data. Anything that is not part of your data, I'm repeating that. Anything that is not part of your data should not be in your data. Those are obstructions. If something is not part of your data, don't just go to the data set and start typing unnecessary stuff, right? It is not part of your data. So just move that on. Then rule number 7 simply means single row of headings. So you must only have one single row of headings, just like this one. No decoration, no one trade here, date here. Just one row. So every table should have only one rows. Every table should have only one rows, right? Every table should have only one rows. So that is the 7 golden rules of data. The data. So just in cap again, no empty row, no empty column. All dates must be in a single column. All columns must have a unique data type. No total or subtotal. No obstruction around your data. Single row of headings, right? So let's move on. Now, I want you to put something in the comments, right? Which of the rule do you think this data I'm showing now is breaking? Which of the rule? Put it in the comments. Which of the rule do you think this data I'm showing now is breaking? Which of them is breaking? Which of them do you think is breaking? Put it in the chat. Just put it in the chat. Which of them is breaking? 7, rule number 7, data type. What is data type? Empty row. I don't know where you see empty row. Me, I can't see any empty row. Where is the empty row? Obstructions. Yes, there's definitely an obstruction. There's empty cells. Okay, empty cells is not a rule. It's fine to have an empty cell. It means there's no record. So empty is not a problem. So if you see an empty cell, it's not a problem. Single row of heading, yes. Obstruction, yes. So many rules, right? But that's about that. Let's move on because we still have a lot in our slide. Now, when it comes to data structure, to get your data clean, you have to use a process called ETL. So our data is dirty, right? And we want to get it structured, just like what I said. So we need to use a process called ETL. And ETL simply means extract, transform, and load. So we are extracting our data from wherever it is. Transform means we are cleaning it, right? That's what transform means. We are cleaning it. And then L means load. We are loading it to any business intelligence tools, maybe Power BI, maybe Excel, maybe Tableau, right? So extract, transform, and load. And we are loading to business intelligence tool. An example of some data cleaning tools that people use is OpenRefine, Melissa, SACS, IBM. The most popular one out of them is Spark Query or Dataflow by Microsoft. Okay, so we've talked about data structure. We've talked about data storage. Now, the next thing is data analysis. Now you've stored your data, you structure your data, then how do you analyze it? Now, data analysis is you telling a story. Imagine you are telling me a story. That's what data analysis is all about. You are telling a story. And we have 5 different categories of analytics. You should put that down. We have 5 different categories of analytics, 5 of them. 5 categories of analytics. So we have the descriptive analysis, we have the diagnostics, we have the predictive, we have the prescriptive, and we have the cognitive. Now, descriptive. I'm a little bit fast right now because I need to cover my slide, but it's fine. Maybe I don't even need to cover the slide because I have a lot of stuff for you guys, but we can put it in another session. Now, descriptive is talking about what has happened based on historical data set. What happened? So when you hear a descriptive analysis, that's what most data analysts do. They do a descriptive analysis to check what has happened based on our historical data set. So they summarize a large data set into a smaller one. So they do a summary, right? And describe outcomes to stakeholders. So what has happened in the past? So that's why we call it historical data. So descriptive analysis is when you get deep into an historical data and you're able to make sense out of it. The second slide is talking about diagnostic. So diagnostic is basically dig deeper to find the cause of a problem. You know, you've used descriptive now to analyze this data. And now you know that, okay, so we've described our historical data. Now we want to dig deep to know, okay, so why does this happen? Why do we have less sales in this year? Why is this indicator, or let me say this metric, is not improving? So the performance indicators are further investigated to discover why they got better or worse. Just like you go to the hospital, they have to diagnose you to know what is wrong with you. Why are you making less revenue? That kind of analysis is called diagnostic analysis. Then we have predictive. Predictive is also an interesting analysis because it's talking about forecasting into the future. It's forecasting into the future. So you identify trend and determine whether they are likely to occur. So you are checking what may happen in the future. So those kind of analytics is called predictive. Predictive. Then we have prescriptive. So, you know, when you go to a doctor, right, an hospital, and then they've diagnosed you, they know what is wrong with you, then they prescribe a drug for you. So that's the same thing what prescriptive is. So that is why most of the time, business analyst is the one that usually do this one. So prescriptive is just by using insight from our predictive analysis or our descriptive analysis to provide solutions, or let me say recommendations to the business on what they think they should do. That's prescriptive. Then the last one is cognitive. So this is usually done by data scientists, right? This is looking at what may happen if some circumstances change it. So you're training and testing your model and see if something changes, how will you handle this situation, right? That is cognitive. So you're using AI and artificial intelligence to kind of test your data and see what will happen if some circumstances changes. So that is why we call it a cognitive analysis. Now, when we are talking about tools for analysis, right? Most people have different tools. In fact, most people prefer different tools. But for me, as a Microsoft advocate, and also based on Gartner's report, Microsoft is actually leading on business intelligence platforms and analytics, right? So if you look at this report from Gartner, you will see that Microsoft is actually leading here. It's actually leading. So, right? Microsoft is leading here, followed by Tableau, followed by Google, followed by Domo, QLinks, MicroStrategy. So these are all tools that people use for analytics, right? And then Microsoft is actually one of them that I am going to recommend, right? So reporting, I think I've talked about this. There's a particular video I released on my YouTube channel that talk more about what reporting is, because most people ask these questions too. That what is reporting? What is reporting? Reporting is just basically comparison. You are comparing something with something. It can be actual versus actual. And when I say actual versus actual, I'm talking about actuals like sales, like revenue, like expense, like performance. So those are actuals. Or I can say maybe it is actual versus, okay, I think my slide is just running, but it's fine. I can say it's actual versus competitor. What are competitors doing, right? That's also one. I can say it's actual versus budget, right? This is my particular budget. So I'm comparing something. And it can also be actual versus time to say what I make this year versus what I make last year, versus what I make last month, versus what I make last quarter. So you are doing a variance based on time. Last year, last month, quarter to date, quarter to month, month to date. So those are reporting. if you're finding yourself doing a report and you're not doing any comparison, then that report is not giving any insight. Because when you tell me we make 50 million, for what? But when you tell me that we make 50 million, where we make 40 million last year, that tells me that there's a 10% increase in our revenue. Because if you compare the value with something we made last year, so you must always do comparison when you are creating your report. And that is what our reporting is all about. Now, there's a typical analytics process. And I want to ask you a simple questions here. So this typical analytics process kind of fall under six stages, right? The first one is we download data from operational system, like SAP, Oracle, this one that I told you earlier. Then after you download the data, you clean and prepare the data. You clean the data. Then after you clean the data, you perform your analytics, maybe your report, you create a report. Then most people maybe populate a template and they have a slide for their presentations. They put some findings in the presentation. Then they make irregular presentations to the management. Then after they make a presentation to the management, then they brainstorm on the numbers and analytics and they act on the insight. That's a typical analytics process. Now, the question I want to ask you is, out of this number 1 to 6, which of them is the most important? 1 to 6, just put number in chat. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. Put it in chat. Out of this number 1 to 6, which of them is the most important that you must do? Extremely important. Number 1, number 2. Number 1 and 2. I've been saying 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Okay, number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Okay. Number 2. Number 2. Number 3. Okay, so I think our response has been Miracle Chuku. Why will you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? You are confusing my destiny. Miracle. In fact, I need to know this person. Okay, so everybody's typing number 1, 2, 3, right? And that is because we are thinking from the technical side that, okay, so if I didn't clean this data very well, then the result is not going to come out well, or this is not going to be that. But technically, to the business, the most important step in this is number 6, right? Is number 6. That's the most important because we are trying to brainstorm on the number and act on the analytics. That's what a CEO will tell you or a business owner will tell you. Just tell me, let me make decision. They just want to make decision. So whatever you do from number 1 to 5 does not concern them. They just want to make decision, right? So whatever you do from number 1 to 5, nobody wants to know. That's your home problem. They just want to make decision. In fact, that's why some people will say that they can use AI to automate number 1 to 5. It's only number 6 that they won't be able to automate, right? So number 6 is the most important. That is why when you are creating a report or you are creating any analytics, you must always have number 6 idea in mind because people are trying to make decision. They are not looking at your fancy dashboard. They are not looking at your color green plus red plus blue plus yellow. They just want to be able to look at the report and make meaningful information from that report. So if you're a graphic designer and you do 3D plus different things, it's not their concern, even though it's still part of their concern, right? So number 6 is the most important. So this particular one, I'm going to skip this aspect and join to just one quickly before I give people access to answer questions. Now, the one I'm going to give access to or talk about now is all you need is standard, right? All you need is standard. When you are creating an analytics report, because we've talked about the end goal now, we've said that what most stakeholders are actually familiarized with or what is really important to them is number 6. They just want to act on the inside. Now, for them to be able to be well familiar with your report, then you need to standardize it. You need to create an amazing report. You need to create something that they will really, really appreciate. You need to always be in their head. So you need to think from their perspective, not from your own perspective, right? So that is why we said most of the time, all you need is standard. All you need is standard. Now, let me give you an example. If you go to Google right now and you type dashboard, I'm sure you will see different type of dashboard with different type of designs. In fact, this dashboard and this dashboard and this dashboard. I showed you 3 dashboard now. This black one, this white, and this like purple What's the difference between these three? Which one will you like first? 1, 2, 3. Let me go back. 1, 2, 3. Type 1, 2, 3. Which one do you like the most, right? Which one do you like the most? Number 1. Somebody like number 1. Somebody like number 2. Somebody like number 3. Okay. So for me, if I would go for any one out of these 3, I would say number 3 is perfect, because anytime I see pie chart or donut chart in a dashboard, it's already off for me. It's already off, right? It's already off for me. I don't want to see. So many things is wrong in this dashboard. See, this person is using pie chart to visualize something. This person is also using bar chart to visualize a category. This is very wrong. And this category is not showing properly, right? Anytime you find yourself using a category like this, then you should use what do we call it? A bar chart, which is horizontal bar chart, not column chart. So this does not make any sense to me, right? And for the second one too, for me to even see a donut chart, I'm already off. And this person also has a tree map here. This tree map does not give me any information right now. Is it a slicer or the shape of this EMP? Why is their shape the same? Does it mean that most of the revenue of all of these EMP are the same? I can't make any decisions from this dashboard. And remember, we said always think from the perspective of the stakeholder, because they just want to make decisions, right? Now, this one is a little bit easier because I usually tell people, anytime you find it hard to pick a chart, you are thinking too hard on a particular chart to use for a report, there is no crime in using a table. Just use a table. Just use a table. There's no crime. Anytime you are finding it hard to pick a particular chart, just use a table, right? Now, if you go to Google and you also type something like this, you will see various types of dashboard, right? You see various dashboard that people put there, because there's no standardization in business and in analytics. In these analytics, there is no standardization at all, right? And that is why we need to kind of aim for standardization. But if you look at other business, or let me say semantics notation in other disciplines, let's look at other disciplines, for example. There are standardizations. People do things the same. And the reason why these dashboards are not similar, or they are not looking like the same, is because this is ideas of different people thinking. Different people think of things. There's no standardization. But in other disciplines, let's say, for example, this is a sheet music, right? Now, I want you to put it in chat. What do you think is the sender and the receiver of this? Who is the sender of sheet music? Who is the sender of a sheet music? And who is the receiver? Right? You know, communications is all about sender and receiver, right? It's all about coming from somebody and somebody receiving it. That's the same thing as you being in a dashboard. You are sending and the stakeholder are receiving it. So you must always think of the receiver. Okay, so musicians, so you're right. Anybody that can understand and write music will be able to send a sheet music. And anybody that can play music will be able to play a sheet music and understand it, right? And that is one-way communication. This is a communication that is very straight. And the reason why it is one way is because even though you write a sheet music in the US and you send it to Nigeria, any musician will understand as long as you know how to read music, right? So there's standard everywhere. Even if you create a music in Ghana, you post it to India, anybody will understand, right? As long as they're into music. And if you go to Google right now and you type sheet music, I'm sure you will see that there's standardization. They all look the same. They all look the same, right? They look the same. Now, in another discipline, if you look at road sign, I'm sure that most of us know that the road sign is probably from Road Safety Authority. They are the sender. The Road Safety Authority is the sender. And the receiver on the road are drivers. Now, all of us know that red is stop. Amber is get ready. Green is go. That's a communication that is standardized all over the world. If you go to UK, US, Spain, everywhere is the same, unless in Nigeria where red actually means go quicker. No, I think red means go faster. Yellow means it's your turn. And green means I'm the owner of the road, right? But still, we still need to understand the road. Right? Red means stop, right? And yellow means either get ready to stop or get ready to go, right? So this is also one-way communication. It's the same all over the world, right? Now, when it comes to Google as well, so if you go to Google and you type road signs, you will see that they are all the same all over the world, right? This is a one-way communication. If you also look at construction industry too, right, you will see that the communication is also the same. Wherever you draw your house plan from, wherever you draw an architect that draw your plan, they can execute the same design everywhere. The communication is one way. But when it comes to business, there's no standardization. People do things the way they like. People do things the way they are being inspired to. Now, look at these 6 different charts now. All of them are talking about balance sheet. They are all talking about the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. Now, tell me how these 6 charts looks the same. Are they the same? In fact, somebody even, don't think this one here, these 2 here, don't think this is a game. Oh. It's not a game. Oh. It's actually a visual. I'm sure some people will be thinking it's a game, right? It's not a game. So it's some visuals, and people are still trying to visualize this. Now, there's a body called IBCS, International Business Communication Standard. And then they have a code that says that what look the same should also mean the same and visualize in the same manner. What look the same should also mean the same and visualize in the same manner. So IBCS, that's by the body called International Business Communication Standard. You can read about them if you want to. They have, I think they have some manuals online that you can read about. So it's International Business Communication Standard. And they have their own standardized way of doing visualization, which I'm not going to go into more deep today, right? So they have the way of doing their visualizations. I think they have their rules to say that when you are working with test and line should always be black. When you are working with actual, you should not use different color. Just use only one color, which is solid. For you, you can use maybe blue. In your organizations, you can agree this is just one color we're using, right? Then when you're talking about previous year, or you're talking about last year or previous month, you should use something a little bit lighter from that actual, right? That's the standard. When you're talking about forecast, you should use something ash, right? When you're talking about budget, you should use something plain, right? So that is their own standardization. But in most organizations, they don't have this standard. And you as a data analyst can come and say, okay, let's standardize the way we do report. If we are using green, let's be using green. If we are using red, let's be using red. But red and green is even way off it. You should never use red and green for a visualization because those two used to signify good and bad. Green means good, while red means bad. So if you now make the theme of your entire dashboard green, that's already hot for me. Or you make the theme of your entire dashboard red, that's already hot for me. Even if you are analyzing for UBA or Zenith Bank, that their logo is red, their company brand is red, you can still think of a way to be creative. You don't need to be used red all over. In fact, you can use maybe brown, something close to black, but don't just make your dashboard red danger or too green, right? That way you're going to miss a lot from the dashboard. So this is where I am going to stop and start taking questions. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Dufia, for the clap. I think I've talked for 1 hour straight, non-stop. Now, I'm going to allow you guys to talk as well. So I'm going to ask questions. Yeah, I'm going to ask questions now. So before I take our questions, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take our questions. So if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand now. I'm only going to take just 5 to 7 questions. That's what I'm going to take. So, but before we take our questions, I want to put up the quiz first because we need to do a quiz and also do our evaluation. Like I said, it's very important in every session. So the link to our quiz should be dropped in chat now by our moderator. Please drop the link to our quiz and evaluation in chat. So if you can drop that in chat as well. So for the evaluation, I'm going to maybe drop that. Okay, let me copy that. Okay, so evaluation form. And the quiz. So I'm just going to put those two and then pin it so that we can all be looking at it and just be doing it while I'm answering your questions. Okay, so I'm going to pin this. Yeah, pin. So this has been pinned, so we can start answering our quiz and evaluation right now. So I can start taking questions now. So I'm going to start from the first person that raised his or her hand, and that is Nafisat. So Nafisat, please go ahead. Your mic has been given access to speak. Nafisat, please go ahead if he's given access to speak. So I'm trying to unmute, allows many of us to speak so that we can go ahead. So whoever is ready and your mic is open, please go ahead, please. I've allowed few people now to speak. Okay, so Nafisat, Ojo, Saidi, Michael, Michael Arewa, and Michael Irene, Mujib, Kolawole.
Yeah.
Your mic.
Good evening, Mr.
Hello.
Adwali.
Good evening.
Yeah. My name is Mujib. Thank you for the insightful session so far. My question is quite straightforward. When you were giving us today's session, you mentioned that empty cells are fine.
Yes.
When you were speaking, so I'm just concerned about how do we I know there's a process whereby you go about handling maybe missing values and stuff like that. But when are we to decide if these particular missing values are to be handled in a certain way? I'm always confused when it comes to that part. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think going straight to your question. So empty cells are fine, and most of the time you don't need to get rid of some of them. In fact, some of them simply means that you need to ask more questions, because when you say let me say for a particular month, let me use a month as an example, from January to December. In January, we have a figure. In February, nothing. In March, nothing. In April, we have a figure. You don't need to remove that March and April. Leave it there as empty. In fact, in your visualization, show it as empty, so that people will know that there's nothing. It's actually zero. So we can now start asking questions and say, okay, so what's wrong with our data quality? What's missing in our data? Does it mean we didn't sell anything in March? Or maybe our data is not, the quality of our data is not that okay, or our data is not correct? Then that's for you. You already know. Now, when you have some empty that doesn't make sense, maybe you are trying to work with categories, right? And you just have an empty across rows, get rid of that. Or maybe you have a category that has something and also empty. Maybe that category has a name, the description is empty. It's still fine, you can leave the description. So that's why I said empty cells, it's not a problem. It just means that something is missing. Do you understand that, Mujib?
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. So whoever is going next. Hi, Michael.
Hello, sir. Yes, good afternoon. Yes, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right, sir. So you talked about data structure and you gave us about 7 rules that govern data structure. So I noticed that what you mentioned was basically for Excel. Does that apply to other tools?
Like database, yeah.
Like SQL and another one. So does that rules apply to every other ones? And also I wanted to confirm, when as data analysts, I know that we definitely make use of descriptive analytics more. So how can we as data analysts apply diagnostic and predictive and even prescriptive to what we do as data analysts?
Okay, and that's a very good question too. So from the first one, the rule actually applies to all, not just Excel, right? The rule basically may just, I'm talking about the rule generally for you. So those are the things you need to check, right? Even though you connect to a database somewhere, even though you connect to, let's say, social media like Twitter, you connect to Instagram, you want to do some marketing analysis. Those are the things you need to look out for when you bring that data in to say, okay, so this data, when I'm cleaning it, maybe you're cleaning it in Power Query or you're cleaning it in SQL or whatever, you need to make sure, okay, so this table has only one heading, right? But some of the database, or let me say storages like MySQL, PostgreSQL, most of them are always structured already. So you don't really have most of a problem with them. But when you come across any unstructured data, those are just the steps that you should just apply to it. That's to answer the question. Then the second question is, like I said, data analysts do most of descriptive, but we do others too. We do prescriptive, right? And that is why sometimes we call ourselves a business intelligence. So if you call yourself a business intelligence analyst, so that means you understand a little bit of the business. You're not just analyzing as well. You're also providing guidance to the stakeholders, right? But it depends on the company structure. Some company has business analysts differently that you report to. Some company, you report directly to the stakeholders. You give them information yourself. So as a data analyst, you should have all the skills, right? Even though you are not doing some of them, you should have most of it. You can do predictive analytics yourself. There are some predictive analytics you can do in Power BI, basics one. There are some one you need to do by maybe using Python. There are some you need to do maybe by using Microsoft Fabric. So you just need to have diverse experience, but just know that the most important one to use is descriptive. I hope that answers your question, Michael.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anybody that wants to go next? I'm taking like 3 or 4 questions more. I want us to round up in 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
I think a lady speak first. Sorry, the guy.
Okay.
A lady speak first. Emanuela, then Kolawole.
Yes, thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for today's teaching. I have 2 questions to ask. The first is, what's the chance of this data analytics procedure being taken over by AI? And then my second question is, what is the difference between a data analyst, data engineer, and data scientist?
Okay, so the first question, I think I get that a lot. Will AI take over what we do? The answer is no. I'm sure you don't expect me to say yes, especially with the announcement of fabrics that can do co-pilot, a lot of things. AI will not take over our job. AI just will make us work faster and make our life easier. There are some things that you will do repeatedly manually, but you'll now be able to do it faster and easier. Because most of the time, our skills and experience, we still need it, right? That's why storytelling, that's why I said storytelling is also something that is very important, because the way you will tell a story will be different from the way an AI will tell a story, because you understand the business, you understand what is going on, you know how to tell that story well, right? Than just giving it to the AI to do. That is why AI will not take over what we do. AI will just make us work faster or smarter. Your second question, the difference between a data engineer, a data analyst, and then a data scientist. A data engineer is somebody that manage data warehouse, that manage the storage. You know, in data literacy, I mentioned storage. So just leave data storage and structure for data engineer. So data storage is what data engineer manage. So they manage the data, they manage the storage, they make sure the data is being organized in schemas. So that's what they do. They work with backend data alone. Data analyst is somebody that just get the data and transform that data into information. That's what they do. So they get this data and they transform it into information. Now, data scientist is an extension of data analyst. It's just somebody that use, let me say, Python and artificial intelligence like machine learning to be able to dig deeper, more into the data. I hope you understand. But data scientists sometimes can still do some of the work that data analysts do. Okay, I hope that answer your question, Emanuela. So I'm taking 2 questions more. Anybody that wants to go ahead?
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Adewale. So thanks for this section today.
Yep.
Can I continue now?
Please continue.
All right. Thank you very much. So my question is like, let me say like 2 or 3, and I really need, let me say clarification. First, I want to start from
Let's do
the
2.
place of the details. What do you say, sir?
Let's do 2. 3 is a lot.
Right. So the visuals where you talked about categorical data is being used with either do not chart or bar chart. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know of Tableau. Tableau training as regards visual says that you can use categorical data with do not chart, but the categories must not be more than 3. Once it's more than 3, then don't use maybe batch or pie chart or donut chart. So now when you talked about categorical data not being used with donut chart and then also with bar chart, so I'm a little bit confused there. I want to know what then can we use? Are we automatically using table in that sense? So that's the first question. So my second question is regarding the, I'm coming, please, I want to check my notes here. Okay, regarding report, yeah, let me talk about the report. I still really didn't get the part where you said comparison, though I understand what you meant when you said we should compare whatever we are seeing at the moment, like what our analysis is telling us, we should compare it with maybe what has happened in the past. I understand. But then let us assume that we don't have any, let's assume that we are doing a descriptive analysis now, and automatically we are working on historical data all through. So, and we don't have any in the past to compare with. So in such a case, what are we going to be comparing with? Because we don't have a future data ahead that we want to do, that we want to work with. And let's say, okay, maybe we are not doing anything like prescriptive. It's just plainly descriptive analysis now. So what are we going to be comparing with at that point in time? So those are my two questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, so your question was nice. Let me just quickly summarize it. The first one is talking about, okay, let me just correct the statement there. I didn't say you should not use a categorical chart with pie chart. I said when you're using a category data, you can use an horizontal bar, right? An horizontal bar. Do not use a column chart, like let's say the column bar. You do not use that with the category data, because when you use that, if that category is very long, then it's not going to show it properly. It's not going to show, I'm trying to look for that slide where it shows that. So it's not going to show the chart properly. Yeah, this is it. So look at this transportation. You can't see this fully. You can't see what this category means fully. But if you turn this visual to an horizontal bar chart, which is just like this, right? Just turn it like this, right? Then you'll be able to see that categories, you'll be able to see it clearly, right? You'll be able to see it clearly. So this is what I mean by a horizontal bar chart. This one, the way this person uses it here, this is what is right, right? This is what is right. You should only use a column chart or a line chart for time series. Anytime you're talking about time, maybe you want to visualize months, you want to visualize year, you want to visualize quarter, you want to visualize date, that's when you should use a column chart or a line chart. That's what I mentioned around that. Then my next question is, then you talk about pie chart. I said I don't like pie chart. Anytime I see pie chart in your report, I don't like it, right? And the reason is this. You can use pie chart. It's not as if you can't use it, right? But you should only use pie chart in two conditions, just two. The first condition is this. You should only use pie chart if your category is not more than 3, like you said, but the numbers are not going to change. They are static. What I mean by static is these numbers here is not going to change. It's not an interactive report. It's a printed report. If it's a report you are printing and you know that, okay, so these numbers are not going to change, it's three conditions actually. These numbers here are not going to change. It is not more than 3 categories, and the difference between those categories are high. If the difference is close, don't use it. Those 3. Now, for most of the time, the report the data analytics will create is an interactive report that people need to interact with. The numbers needs to change. So if your numbers is going to change, then don't use it, because very soon, this number may grow. This white, look at this white you're seeing here. This white may grow and look closer to this guy. So when you see 2 of them, you don't even know at a glance. A visualization is something you should just look at and it will give you information. It's not me trying to crack my head or me looking at the percentage or the data labels that you put here. So if you're putting a data label, why just you put it in a table instead for me to look at? So why do I need to stress my head, right? That's why you should never use that. Then there's your second question is talking about comparison. There will always be a comparison, no matter the data you're analyzing. Even if you're analyzing a data that has only 1 year, an historical data, you only have 1 year historical data. In that 1 year, there are several months. So you can compare between months. You can do this month versus last month. Even though you're analyzing a data that is only 1 month, you can compare by week. Even though you analyze the data, there's only one day you can compare by competitors. You can get competitors' data outside. Even though you can't get the competitors, you can set a target or budget for that data to be able to kind of compare something with. Even though there is no budget, there's nothing. You can also compare with, let's say, different categories. You can compare different states. Say, how much is this state making? Let's compare Lagos versus Ogun, right? So it's always good to compare numbers. When you give an absolute number, most of the time, that absolute number does not give you any information unless you compare it with something, right? But when you compare that number with something, it now makes sense. Right? That's what most people do. I hope that answer your question. So I'm taking just one more question. Anybody that speak now, I think you get the floor. Hi, Favor. You got my last question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask about the colors when you're doing a visualization. So I currently work in a company where the boss doesn't really understand analytics, and he has issues when we're not working with the company color. So how do we interact in that regard? Should we just stick with what the boss says and just continue with his colors? Because most times the colors are really too flashy, and if it's not as flashy as he likes it, there's a problem. He's always shouting, and it's weird. So I'm wondering how we'll go about it.
Now, let me tell you a funny thing. Boss is the boss. Funny. Favor. Boss will always be first. You must not go against boss will. And you must also not go against your own will. You know your own will is providing professionalism. You don't want to do something that they say is favor that do it. This thing that doesn't make sense is favor that do it. So you always want to provide excellence, right? Now, there is a way you can incorporate what he wants with what you want, and everything will still make sense. If your boss is requesting for a particular color, brand color, this is the brand, this is our brand, right? There are ways that you can still show that brand color in designs that is not going to spoil your dashboard, right? Let's say most of the time, what I advise people for is use your brand color as an highlighter. Highlighter. Highlighter simply means I'm trying to highlight something. Use your brand color as an hierarchy. Hierarchy means something you want people to see first. Don't worry, when we get to report creations and visualization, if I'm not the one speaking, I'm sure the person speaking will do it justice to that. Because report designs and then visualizations and dashboard is a one big topic on its own. So if I want to start talking about it now, I won't leave here. I hope you get that, Favor.
Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
You're welcome. So everyone, please put it in chat if you have filled the evaluation and the quiz. If you have filled the evaluation and the quiz. Okay, so great. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any other questions, again, put it in your group. I'm sure some people will actually respond to you. We have professionals among of you as well that will respond to some of the questions. I'm so sorry I could not answer your questions. We don't want to keep too much of your time and also too much of my own time as well. So it was an amazing session, an amazing discussion with you guys today. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand over back to Ganil.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Adewale Yusuf, for the insightful session. We really appreciate you, sir. Thank you very. Thank you, sir. So I will stop the recording now. Once again, I'm going to post the link to the quiz